Blizzard's Wake, Chapter 18. Kate glanced at the clock at 8:13. If Dad didn't get here soon, he'd miss the president's speech. The yellow cake she baked sat waiting on the kitchen table, its brown sugar frosting glistening in the light of the dimming bulb overhead. She'd have to remind Dad to crank the Delco this weekend. Like most of the rural homes, theirs did not have electric lines out to the house, only a phone line. But her father had installed a Delco generator in the cellar with 30 batteries in it. He would go down and crank it once or twice a week to recharge the batteries, and it would make just enough electricity for the radios, the record players, and a few well placed light bulbs around the house. Where there was no light bulb, there was a kerosene lamp. As for water, there was a deep well beside the house, and 3 pressure pumps, one in the yard, one on the back porch, and one in the kitchen sink. Kate was so used to pumping the handle when she needed water for cooking or cleaning that she didn't even think about it. The toilet in the tub upstairs and the lavatory off her father's examining room had water storage tanks above them, and a pump jack operated by a gasoline motor filled them as required. There was also a cistern out in the yard, a large underground tank with a pipe leading down from the roof, so that whenever it rained, the water was saved. In the summer, Kate would open the little trap door in the wooden cover and lower their milk and butters and eggs in buckets to the cold, clear water. Ice came from a neighbor who had built himself a cave in a small hill. During the winter, he stocked it with large blocks of ice packed in straw, then sold it year-round to the neighbors for their ice boxes. Kate knew that most of the houses in town had electric lines from the city and did not need generators. She knew, too, that they had city water, and some even had electric stoves and refrigerators. But she did not mind. Like her father, she liked the openness and quiet of the country. As long as she had the radio and telephone, she could survive. She'd been listening to the National Barn Dance on WDAY. Then she realized she was missing the pregame comments. In turning the dial for the Bismarck station, she happened upon a weather advisory in Grand Forks KFJM. Interrupt this program for a weather advisory. The Weather Bureau forecasts snow tonight and strong winds approaching 40 to 50 miles an hour with falling temperatures and low to zero visibility. We repeat, snow tonight. Well, that laundry's got to come in dry or not, Kate said out loud, and went to the back door. Large flakes were coming down, and she could still just make out the clothesline in the shape of the shed beyond. The storm was obviously some distance off, and Dad and Jessie would get here long before it came. Still. She went to the telephone and asked the operator to ring the Drybergs. When Mrs. Dryberg answered, Kate said, "I just heard about a storm coming up and wondered if Dad and Jessie are on their ways." "They left here not more than a few minutes ago, dear," Mrs. Dryberg told her. "Don't you worry, they'll be along." "Thanks," Kate said, relieved, and hung up. She threw her coat and gloves on, taking a laundry basket and the clothespin bag, went outside, and hurriedly took the clothes off the line, dropping the pins in the bag. The sheets, dry and stiff, cracked like paper as she thrust them down in the basket, not bothering to fold them yet, while the towels, still damp, went on top of them. Maybe she should go get more wood for the wood box while she was out there, she thought. She took the laundry inside, lit a kerosene lamp to set on the back steps while she worked, and began. When she had brought in all that would fit in the box in the parlor, she piled more on the back porch. Then, as she'd often seen her mother do, she set the lamp in the kitchen window near the door to help her father find his way inside after he parked the car. Kate hung up her jacket, then sat down with Haggerty, teasing him with a piece of string from her sweater pocket. Suddenly she realized that Roosevelt was speaking. The talk had already begun, and her father had asked her to listen. How was she supposed to remember everything he said? She didn't know. She'd already missed 5 minutes. She turned up the volume on the radio because of the static and folded clothes as she listened. It was Roosevelt's voice, all right. Nazis are not seeking modifications in colonial maps or in minor European boundaries. They openly seek the destruction of all elective systems of the government on every continent, including our own. They seek to establish systems of government based on regimentation of all human beings by a handful of individual rulers who seized power by force. This sounded too scary to listen to alone, and Kate wished that her father had been here. Even though with Jessie would be better than sharing such news with a kitten. She went to the front door and peered out to see if any car was coming down the road. Then she walked back to the door to see if possibly they had come in and parked and she'd missed it. She stepped outside to check the weather. The snow was coming down harder now. When she returned to the parlor, she turned the rocker so that if any cars were coming, she'd see the headlights far off. But now, the time element of supreme importance. Every plane, every other instrument of war, old and new, which we can spare now, we will send overseas.